All right. So the next thing I want to talk about, this one's probably going to be pretty quick, but I just want to show you some things that as I was going through the change logs, I noticed there were some fun little features and things that they changed to the UI that I thought people would like. Um, so the first thing, let me go to the designer here. The first thing I want to talk about is in 14.3, version 14.3, which is what we're on now. They added a feature where if you click on the embedded field button, this green button here, it will show you where the field is embedded. So if you have a giant form with hundreds of fields and you need to figure out where you put that field instead of having to search for it, if you just click it, it will automatically scroll up and show you where that field is. So let me just drag this all the way down to the bottom so it's out of the screen view here. And if I click it, it's going to scroll up and then flash and let you see where this embedded is. So I thought that was kind of nice.
Hey Manny,
Yep.
let me don't lose your place here. Let me just show a different example real quick because this was one that existed that was a little bit more dynamic because um, there's multiple embedded document or multiple fields in different descriptive text fields. Let me just show it real quick. Okay, this is the one I want to show. So notice that there's a bunch of um, embedded fields in different descriptive text tables. And so there's a lot of variables in here, and the variables show up in different of these tables. So you see all of these, and it would be nice to know which one of these, and if you just click on one, it will show you which table of descriptive text information that you can find that variable. Definitely going to be a time saver if you just want to see, and it just flashes quickly. It might be nice if it flashed just a little bit more. Hopefully you saw that red dotted line around the table so you can find out where that variable is embedded rather than having to do Control F and search for it. And I mean, it's monstrous. So that'll be a big help. Anyway, I'm gonna stop sharing, Manny. Go ahead.
So the next little fun feature that they added was now the label of every field is highlighted so that if you click on it, it automatically copies the name to the clipboard. So just open up Notepad here. It'll pull in the value of the field. So if I just click on today day, so this will be nice for whenever you're having to design something and you're trying to remember what it's called, or having to close something and open up go back to this. It'll be nice to just grab this and click on it.
So for me, the best example I could think of was right there that you were showing. You had a calculated field, and I run into this all the time, whether it's calculated field, calc text, calc date, things like that. But you need to know those variable names. If you just close that a minute or just minimize it, yeah, thanks. But you see your equation, and what I would usually do is open up two windows, and Manny does this all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, two tabs, and you have the one tab with the equation, and the other tab with the just general design. And so in the past, yeah, I had to like would go in here and find the variable and copy it and then go over to the other one and paste it. But now you don't really have to do that. If you have your two tabs open, when you have your equation that you're looking to, plug in those uh, variables, all you have to do is go from one to the other, and you don't have to actually open up the design for that, and you just click on the today year and
Yep.
plug it in. So it'll be so much faster. I'm so excited about that one in particular.
Yeah.
And Caltech. And another one is like Tanya was just working on something with a project, and it was a calculation, but it involved um, going back and forth and using, I mean, it used event names because it was longitudinal, but you needed to make sure that you were capturing the right variable for the equation and to be able to bounce back and forth and just staying accurate to copy and paste those variables from that uh, highlighted variable name that's showing up on the screen there. Oh, it's going to be a huge help. And if you haven't done it that way by using two tabs, uh, I highly recommend. And Manny sort of introduced this a long time ago by keeping two tabs open, one with the display and one with the design. So as you make changes, he would do this for surveys, but you do it also with, um, live uh, data entry forms. You just refresh your page once you make the design change on the one tab, go back to the live view and refresh it and see your changes. So, I mean, these are all big help things that they're adding in, little things like Manny said, but boy, they're going to be time savers in the build process. Anyway, go ahead. Thanks.
Mhm. So the next thing I want to talk about is a while back, the REDCap introduced the new day, month, and year functions, where you can grab the date part that you want from a date. So if you only want the month, if you want to grab the month or the day value or the year value, instead of having to do like a string function where you want the left two for the month, or the right four for the year, or the mid value, two character middle value for the day. You could just do the day and then your field value, or month and your field value, or year then your field value. But the problem was um you had to use a field value. You couldn't use um today. So you can see here that month, day, year, I have both of these now. The new feature is that you can use now or today in quotes for both of these, or for all three of these rather. So if we go to the design here, and if I just pull up the day, um, you can have month and then today in quotes. Because it was weird that you couldn't do that, because um, the date diff function uses that all the time. And so I think a lot of people thought like, oh, if I just want to do today, I could just put it in quotes, and it was failing. So what you would have to do is you'd have to create a date field that had a default of today, because you could also use that in the default value is today or now, or they have the action tags for those. So you'd basically have to create a date that constantly updated with today's date, and then then you could do month and then just that field value. So instead of having to do that, you can just do month and day today, and it's the same for the day, for the day and the year. If people aren't familiar with that, the video we did is up on the YouTube site that explains these functions. But you can also now you can use the now value. So if you just put now in quote, so because if now, the difference between now and today is just the date, whereas now is the date and the current hour and minutes. I believe. I think you can, depending on your field type, you can do hours, minutes, and seconds, or just hours and minutes. But it includes the time. It's not just the date. So if you want to grab the date, the month value from a now field, or now, sorry, you would use this. And then the same thing is for day, just as long as it's in quotes. And I'm sure it doesn't matter if it's single quotes or double quotes. REDCap is kind of lenient that way. I just have it here with double quotes. Oh, I'm copying the wrong thing. So here we go. So year. So that's another thing that was recently added in 14.2.2. And then another thing that I want to show is if we go to the project home, in 14.2.0, they added an icon up here for the current users that if you click it, you can download a list of the users. So if you have I mean, this, it's just me on this project, but if you had a huge project, like if I did the Recover project that had hundreds of users, you could download this. And then I'll show you how it looks when I open it up. And it's just the information that you see. The only thing you don't see on the screen here is the email. But if you clicked on the email, and you can see it down here in the bottom left, that's the hyperlink for my email. So that just gives it to you all in a table. So if you want to see all your users, and this would be nice. The nice thing is that my first thought was it would be cool to grab this because it's a CSV. If you had another project that just had these as fields, you could run an import that will constantly keep like user list up to date. So if you had to constantly, have a drop down for coordinators or something like that, instead of you having to manually enter the values of people who are still on the project, you could just export this from that project. It can even be from this project and go right back into this project. As long as you had the fields for this that you were creating the values from. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Another place that it could come in handy, and again, just kind of looking for possible examples. But I just recently saw a project that I was very familiar with, a really great project, and there was a bunch of users attached to it. Only the project, excuse me, had started a few, like maybe 5 years ago. And it was well funded, but there was only funded for periods of time. So there was a question about the project the other day on something that seemed benign. Somebody said a field wasn't working, which it had never been changed, and it was probably user error. But I took a look at it, and I really it might have been a nice feature to use that print into CSV, because almost everybody had left the project and left the university or whatever. The only people that were left were people that, so this was a multi-site study, and the coordinators from the different site were still active, but everybody else was showing up in the expiration as suspended because they either had not logged in, they were not part of the university, they had moved on to other jobs, and there was nobody even administering the project anymore. And it was tragic because they're still collecting data, but the original PI has retired, and he thought that he had turned this over to somebody that would, follow the project. But in fact, she quickly took another job at the university and just basically blew this off. And I was horrified to see, because this was this is a project that was of huge benefit for Native American population up in Flagstaff area. So to be able to, at a glance, or I could have printed this off and sent it to the person that is supposedly managing this study now. She's not associated to it, but I could send this to her and say, look, you can see that these people are no longer active with the project. Something needs to be done about this, because at some point somebody may ask to replace a coordinator, and there's nobody that can do that. So anyway, nice to be able to see at a glance.
Mm-hmm. So piggybacking on that, another thing that had been added in 14.1.0 is now there is a read-only user privilege for the user rights page. So before, you either had to have full access to the user rights to see who was on the project and what their rights were, or you didn't have any privilege to see anything. So if we go to the user rights here, since I'm an administrator, obviously I can see everything here. But if I was, let me go back to the project home because it'll complain. This is something that I believe only REDCap administrators have access to.
Yes, that's right.
Viewing a project as a user. So I can see what this project would look like for this manual test account, which is not an admin. And you'll notice a big difference over here in all the menu options. So if I click on manual test, now I have limited options here, and I don't have, you can see the applications features that I have access to are very pared down, and the user rights don't show up at all over here. So if I go back to my regular account and I go into the user rights, now you can see here that there's a read-only option. So like I said before, you either had to have full access or no access. So now if I click read-only here and I save it, now my this manual test has view-only, read-only access. So there's a little I there. And now if I go back to that account, you can see it says I have user rights here. And now if I, it's obviously on this page already, but now I could click on it and I could see all the rights for whoever's in this project. So in the instance that Terry was talking about, where somebody, all the coordinators are gone, there's nobody to contact, that kind of thing. Like if these coordinators or if these other people who are still on this project don't have user rights access, they couldn't even go in and say like, they couldn't even look and see what other people had access to or see the user list to be like, oh, well, maybe this person can do it. But now they could see if somebody had product, if somebody had design setup rights, these are the people that may be the next candidates to take over for a project, or the people that have the higher level rights. But you wouldn't be able to see that if you couldn't see any of the user rights at all. So it's nice that this is here, and if I click, nothing happens. I can't change anything. So I thought that was a really nice
Great
feature.
example.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, so if you only have viewing user rights, do you have access to a user rights history?
Let's see.
Yeah, you do. Okay. Oh, no, you don't.
Well, there may be no data in it because it's just a test project and nothing.
Yeah, maybe. And plus the
Possible.
date and time is for today. So, I mean,
Okay.
I think maybe the fact that it shows up here on the menu is a good sign. But yeah, you might want to look into whatever project that you have that has more data, I would say.
Okay.
But yeah, it seems like you might have it.
That's a good question, though.
The other thing that I should mention too is that if the person doesn't have, I think if I don't have design privileges, I don't see anything. So let's see. Because I think I had to give myself design setup access. Oh no, it's there. So yeah.
Right. They're separate, and
Yeah.
as long as you have some form of user rights, and this comes in handy when you're doing any build, is if you give somebody user rights that to manage your people, but you don't want them making any design changes, then you can give them that. And it used to be just a checkbox, just like the project design is, you either got it or you didn't. Now that they separated it out, which is pretty cool. Because I like your example of
the project I was just talking about.
Mhm.
And that has happened where somebody has looked, all the people that had project design set up and the user rights had left. And the people were not able to see what kind of permissions existed out there, who could be and possibly be in charge for a question. You know, now if they have those permissions, then they can see.
So the last thing that I want to talk about is there's a new feature in the alerts and notifications, which is called it's a test run option. And so it allows you to sort of send out a test alert that doesn't actually go anywhere. Because and I don't know if you guys have a lot of experience with the notifications and things like this or the alerts. If you're building an alert, like let's say you have a project that you've already entered hundreds of records in or any data in, and you're building your alerts after the fact, a lot of the alerts are set up to where they go out, you know, when the record is saved or when it hits some sort of branching logic, you know, or any logic. But if you've already got those records saved or that data saved, it's not triggering. So what you do is you just reevaluate the alerts and it'll go through all the records, and anything that matches on the criteria will send out a notification for. But if you have thousands of records or hundreds of records or, you know, a lot of, you're just, you know, you're worried about sending a lot of notifications out, especially if you're not sure if you got it right, you may hesitate. So the nice thing about this new option is it allows you to kind of send out a test notification to see like, okay, I have 5 records that I think should go out. I want to see if those 5 will go out. Or, if, you know, let's say you're expecting 5 and the test run says, oh, there's 100. You're like, okay, well, maybe I did something wrong. So I just created a quick record in the project here. And so I just have this set to trigger the alert anytime there's a new record saved in the new features project or instrument. And it goes out immediately, and I'm just sending it just once. And I just have this dummy email set up here. So if I save this, nothing happens. So if I go to, for example, if I go to add, edit, or add new record, and I just do test and I save it. Now, if I refresh this, it says 1 record was alerted and I'll get an email for that. But it still didn't send out the first one. So the test option is in the reevaluate alerts area. So if I click on that, this is the new feature here, this enable test run. And if you select that, some text comes on the screen and just says that test run mode is enabled. Selected alerts will be reevaluated in a sandbox-like environment, which will allow you to view which records would be affected by the reevaluation without actually sending or scheduling any alerts. With the test run enabled, no records will be affected during the reevaluation. So this is nice too, because whenever we're testing alerts, or especially me, when I'm testing alerts, I'll create a record and I'll send an alert, I'll trigger it. But then the problem is if you set it to trigger once, you have a hard time triggering it again. You have to delete the record. You have to create a new record to test it again because you're still tinkering with the criteria. But once you set it and once you trigger the alert, you can't trigger it again. Or you have to set it to trigger every time the record is saved or something like that. So this allows you to tinker with the criteria and send out the alert without sending out the alert. So you can go fix it if it you know works the way you want it to work, good for you. But if not, then you didn't already trigger it, and now you're kind of screwed, and you have to go back and create a new record. Like it just gives you another option. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna schedule this alert or select it, and I'm gonna hit reevaluate, and now it's gonna tell me that no records were affected, but 2 notifications were scheduled, and across a total of 2 records. And then I can download the list of the records. So I can see that these would be the 2 records that are affected by this reevaluation. So it's nice because I don't have to actually send this. But it tells me what I'm expecting. So I have 2 records in my project. It's saying that right now I just have if it's saved in any status. So if I change this to complete, then I should expect no records because I didn't save any as complete. So if I reevaluate this, nothing changed. It appears that no notifications need to be scheduled. So because nothing's triggering those this notification because the records need to be saved with the complete status, and they're incomplete right now. So this is a nice way to just test your notifications out without having to commit to sending a bunch of emails to yourself and going in and deleting records and adding records and that kind of thing and just going back and forth. So now you can create your project or your notification and then test it whenever you want to see what you're, if what you're getting is what you're expecting. So does anybody have any questions about that one?